And welcome to Cruising with Kayfabe. I'm Mongo.
Emily.
And today, this is the story. All you know about Omega Ospreay before we get to All In, because we want to start a new style of videos, a new series, so to speak, of us just telling you why we like a storyline, why we like a match, why we're enjoying something, or to catch you up if you've never seen it before.
Yeah, we noticed that there's a lot of people. I know we keep saying this, but if you're new, this is why. We want to engage with the newer AEW fans on top of, you
Helping
know,
refresh people who maybe haven't been along for the whole ride on this epic journey, especially since it's been 3 years. It's a lot to unpack. Now, selfishly, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. We're getting really, really close to 1,000, but there's a 10-minute video that I made on Omega Ospreay. This is the more expanded upon version of that. So if you want a quicker experience, you can check that out. I'm going to put it at the link below in the description if you want to check it out. But I really wanted to talk about this story because not only are we going to All In, but it's probably one of my favorite modern day rivalries just because it's one of those things they can cool off and heat right back up at a moment's notice.
and what I like is that you'll hear us talk about them, being brutal enemies to having to come together and then
Being
being
wrestling
brutal
soulmates.
enemies. And they truly are like the best in the business, number one and number two. And I think that that's kind of what sets the bar now for wrestling and stories and wrestling matches. These are two men who literally have hated each other. Maybe kayfabe, maybe not. It's hard to tell. They are really, really good at keeping it. And that's probably why we like it so much.
You know, it's one of the funny things you say that. Do they hate each other? Is it a work? Are they friends?
They blend the
Because
line.
let's go back to 2022 when this kind of all started. Let's go back in time, so to speak, and think about how this all started in the summer of 2022 when you had the build up to Forbidden Door. Ospreay walked through the Forbidden Door, takes on Orange Cassidy. He's also mocking Omega at the same time too. He would have a match that summer in Rev Pro against his friend Mad Kurt, where he would hit the One Wing Angel. He'd lift up his arm, mocking Omega like he kicked out. He kicked out. Kenny Omega would respond with a tweet. He would go on Twitch making fun of Will, and they started planting those seeds for a match to happen. And again, this is summer of 2022. Ospreay's come through the Forbidden Door. Partnership's been reestablished with New Japan. It's incredible because their paths never really crossed before in Japan because Kenny kind of left when Will rose to prominence.
And that's kind of what this was is in a very famous press conference, Will says to Kenny, if you don't pass the torch, I'll fucking take it from you.
Yes, that was the build to Wrestle Kingdom 17 because there would be teases for this, but unfortunately it would kind of be shot down because Kenny and the Bucks would be suspended for their involvement in Brawl Out. So the build would be a little rushed. November, you would see Kenny Omega come on the big screen, challenging Will officially, getting us to that press conference at Wrestle Kingdom. And that was such an intense moment because they've been exchanging shots on social media. Omega cut a promo on Ospreay when they showed up in the trios for the trios championships in the tournament. The United Empire took on the Bucks, and he basically told Ospreay, "You're never going to be as good as I am. You know, I told you to make New Japan better than when I left it. I want you to build it up, Will. You think you're the king of Japan? You're nothing. If I go there, I'll be the king." And all that passion, all that anger from social media, from the promos, from everything collided at this press conference. So if you're gonna watch it, check out the Wrestle Kingdom 17 press conference because it's like 11 minutes, but it's like 10 minutes of them just staring down, yelling at each other.
And if you want to be impressed, Kenny Omega speaks fluent Japanese, French, and English, and I think a little Spanish. Incredible to watch this man speak complete fluent Japanese, and then he says, translate that for Will. Like, he's so arrogant, so cocky. That's, to me, that's the Will Ospreay. That was back when he was with Don Callis. He was taking over everything, and
That was basically the cleaner Kenny.
yeah, so I think that to understand Kenny Omega, you really need to get into that Kenny Omega. And I think that's what I really enjoyed not knowing Kenny prior to 2019. Seeing this Kenny Omega was like, that's why everyone says he's the greatest in the world. That's why.
No, it's You're right, because when he left Japan, he basically left as the cleaner. He kind of left as that cocky, arrogant, brash, I know I'm damn good. You know I'm damn good. I didn't call myself the god of professional wrestling. The fans did. And it's just that bravado that he brought to the press conference. And that was his whole crux in this feud with Will is, look, Will, I leave, I come back, and now we have a draw at the Tokyo Dome. You're welcome. And Will comes up and he's fiery. He gets right in his face. He's like, don't you fucking sit there and tell me I didn't struggle. You know, during COVID lockdown, I had to sit in a hotel room away from my family.
The size of a broom closet.
I had to, you know, I couldn't be there for my best friend's funeral, which unfortunately was Mad Kurt. And he was very close to him. So he's like, you know, he's bringing in real life situations. So it's like, don't you dare fucking tell me you had it cushy. You were in Florida making a drive to work where you got tested. I had to wait in the airport. He put such real raw emotion because the pandemic was different for him. And he talks about a lot. If you check out Ospreay interviews, he talks about how bad it was. You know, that's why he bonded with the United Empire, because he had him live at his house. So he was bringing these real world struggles for the last 2 years, because this is when Japan was fully out of the pandemic. And he reminded Kenny, he's like, they couldn't even clap for me, bruv. I had to make them cheer other ways. And you've had it easy. So Ospreay was, okay, you little shit, you leave here, you go get your TV money, I'm still grinding, and the world shut down, fuck me, no, fuck you. And that's when he said our favorite line of, if you're not going to pass that fucking torch, I'm going to take it.
We're going to pass this torch or I am going to fucking take it from you.
And it's just that line, you just knew that this match at Wrestle Kingdom 17 was going to be magic. And holy shit, that match was incredible.
And that's where I'm saying, like, the kayfabe was completely blended, because do they actually hate each other? Because honestly, watching that press conference, it's really hard to tell. I think, honestly, that there was a little bit of truth to it. And I'm going to stand by and I'm going to eat that up, because I think that that's what made this match so much better. The moments in the match so much better. The brutality of the match.
The believability of everything behind this build.
Everything. I think when you watch wrestling, you want to think these two, holy shit, they, like, I don't know, that's what you want in a wrestling match. You want to believe everything they're saying, everything they're selling to you, every hit matters. Like, you want that. And I think, again, like, this is what they gave us. This is why they're the best in the world. The two of them. They are A and A. There's no B here.
And they mirror each other. Their career paths mirrored each other. You know, they're both gaijins, you know, not in Japan. They're both coming from the outside, making their name as a foreigner in New Japan to an audience who didn't know them, and they rose to be some of the best, not only in New Japan, but the best around the world.
So if you go back to, like, the 2000s, you've heard us talk before. If you haven't, go check this episode out. Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Bryan mirrored each other's careers to the point where Nigel is almost like Will Ospreay in this situation. And I think that that's a very, very good way of looking at this, is that it's a real, true life thing going on here. Again, Will is stuck in Japan.
And the realest moments turn into the best moments in wrestling. We know some of the best in the business, like a Jericho, like an Okada, like an Ospreay, like Omega, have always said the same things. When you can blend a little bit of realism into it, when you can put yourself into it, when you can turn yourself up to 11, that's what the fans are going to connect with. And that's what connected me with this Ospreay Omega feud. Not only was I a huge Omega mark, I mean, if you can go back and listen to when Emily first even watched the Omega Okada series, I'd stayed up until 4 a.m. my time. I was watching Okada in Japan. I was watching Omega tear it up. I was watching the rise of the Bullet Club. I was watching them come to AEW. And then I was hearing about this kid, Will Ospreay. I was hearing about the super junior weight that was crushing it, who was the next big thing, was the next Kenny Omega. And that's the mark he hated. He didn't want to be the next Kenny Omega. He wanted to be the next Will Ospreay. That's what this match was about. He was sick of hearing the comparisons to Kenny. He was sick of being told he'll never be Kenny. And he was sick of seeing Kenny all over TV. And that bitterness, like you said, kayfabe or not, drove this match, drove the emotion. Every chop felt personal. Every target of the neck on Kenny felt personal. When you had the multiple V triggers, and then even the ending itself, where Kenny hits a V trigger and Will Ospreay puts his middle fingers up and it's like, fuck you. Like, he accepts his fate, gets hit with that one wing angel, and then Kenny takes the IWGP US title from him. So he has not only beaten him in Japan at Wrestle Kingdom on the biggest stage, he took his title, which would cause Will kind of to fall back down and kind of have to pick himself up. Kenny goes back off to America. But now, what does Will do? He was kind of directionless. So flash forward, New Japan had a tournament set up where he could gain a chance to get that title back, and he would ultimately become the number one contender, defeating Lance Archer. And he would sit there at Dominion in the summer and would say, Kenny Omega, have you forgotten about me? Because I haven't forgotten about you when you left me bloody in the middle of that ring in Tokyo and said, I'm coming for you. And then on Dynamite, he showed up and he attacked Kenny out of nowhere. I remember how excited we both were when all of a sudden you just see Ospreay come in and attack. Even Shivani was like, what's going on? It's Ospreay.
So we had the very awesome time of getting to meet both of these guys. We met Kenny before this feud, and we met Will in the midst of it.
No, we met them both before the feud.
Both. Oh, just kidding. So we've gotten to see their personalities, and we know they're pretty quiet. Like, Will is obviously a party guy, but on the other end of it, he's a quiet person.
I don't know if I describe him as quiet. Kenny, yes. Will is very much outgoing, life of the party. I don't know if I could say he was quiet, but
With a drink in him.
fair. But again, that's half the cruise.
Yes.
But yeah, like I said, I absolutely loved it. And yeah, when we met him, that was actually when Ospreay was actually in the situation where he was out injured and he was still claiming to be the New Japan IWGP champion when he had the butterfly belt, V5. And he was actually taking photo ops and he had his gear and everything. But the reason why these stories work, before we get back to the Forbidden 2023, is there had to be the perfect timing, because in New Japan, when Kenny could have gone, you had Will, who unfortunately suffered an injury and he was out. And then when they were starting to tease this feud, unfortunately, Kenny Omega and the Bucks got suspended at All Out, that pace in November 2022, into Wrestle Kingdom in January, Dominion in the summer. But then the summer of 2023 is really where part two of this picks up, because now you have Will, who's the number one contender. He's attacking Omega on Dynamite, basically setting up Forbidden Door, setting up part two of this match because he wants his IWGP US Heavyweight title back. But something is different this time. Kenny no longer has Don Callis. Kenny no longer has the person who's been in his corner for the Okada Series, for his first IWGP win, for his first win against Ospreay.
And who did have Don Callis during this time?
Somebody who actually recruited him to not only hurt Kenny Omega, but to also give Kenny Omega, Ospreay, some advice how to beat Omega.
So you have to remember that Don Callis, that is Kenny's nephew. That is his child, basically. He has raised Kenny through wrestling and through all of this, so he knows his highs, his lows, his weak,
his uncle,
everything. So he knows every detail of Kenny Omega, and he knows exactly where to hit, how to hit, what to, like, every little aspect of where to take out Kenny Omega. That's what Don Callis is teaching Will Ospreay.
Don Callis' mission. That's the whole mission of the Don Callis family. It's to get all the gold, destroy Kenny. That's his white whale is Kenny Omega.
Of the Don Callis family. When you look, even still right now, the Don Callis family was set up to take out Kenny Omega.
And this was where, a lot of that change started to happen, because Takeshita betrayed Kenny and joined the Don Callis family. But then Will would basically be brought into the Don Callis family. His reward was Kenny Omega at Forbidden Door, but also kind of joining Don Callis. So Don Callis kind of working some deals, get Kenny Omega. They build up Forbidden Door 2023. Again, reigniting that same feud from Wrestle Kingdom, but this time you had Ospreay saying, I didn't forget what you did to me. And this match was more brutal than the first one. They had a lot of great callbacks, like the table spot where they bash in the face.
We didn't even discuss my favorite ever table spot, and that is in their first match. Will Ospreay hits a stomp.
No, Kenny Omega stomps Ospreay.
That's right. And there becomes a hole in the table, and Kenny, like Jack Nicholson, The Shining, throws his face into the hole.
So for revenge, you have Ospreay bashing Kenny's face on the table and getting blood everywhere. And then he bashed him on the steps, and then Will's getting thrown, and he gets cut off. So both men are busted open, but at one point, after delivering a hidden blade, there's blood on Ospreay's arm, and he does the thing that Emily loves the most.
So he licks his arm, and the crowd goes, "You sick fuck!" And he goes, "Yep." So cocky, so arrogant. Everything that you see in a heel Ospreay is what you saw that night.
And that's what this presentation of Forbidden Door match was. And we've talked about this match a lot, so we're not going to go, move by move or everything, but think about the presentation of this feud, this match. You have Ospreay coming out with Don Callis, not to Elevated, like we've said before. He changed his music. He has United Empire, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis backing him up in case something happens. Don Callis interferes with the screwdriver, so Kenny's outnumbered. And Ospreay takes advantage of that. But he pulls the trigger. Just like he said he's going to do it all in, he pulls the trigger. He hits Kenny with a Tiger Driver, and then he hits him with a Stormbreaker, and he gets back his title. And this is where I knew. This is where Mongo's tinfoil came on, because backstage, after he wins, Ospreay is gloating that they're 1-1, they're all tied up, but he wants to prove he's the best. He says, if you're ever down for a third, I know a place. And he hinted at Wembley. We were so close to getting it, and I thought Ospreay Omega 3 at Wembley, but I'm like, I can't do it this year because that's too close. You don't want to do Forbidden Door and then 2 months later do Ospreay Omega 3. So you want it to build, but unfortunately we'd have to wait a little bit longer.
Yes, because then we had another Forbidden Door. And then again, it just didn't line up. I think Kenny went out for surgery. And that's kind of what continues to happen, is it's always one of them is out. But last summer, we got to watch them come out and make amends.
Well, you're kind of skipping ahead of here a little bit. So like you said, they were both injured. They were both kind of out, because that's kind of what the tail end of 2023 was with Omega. The reason why it didn't come to fruition, he had to go out for his diverticulitis, so he was out for almost a year. So then he comes back, and Will is also now fully in AEW. He came at Revolution. He's having his run. He's now All Elite, having the run of his lifetime. He's become a babyface. He's left Don Callis. And Don Callis doesn't want to let him forget that. So they start beating him down. Well, he needs help. And the person you didn't think ever would help him. And like you said, enemy of my enemy became my friend. So they bonded over their mutual hatred of Don Callis. And they became a team. And they went to Grand Slam Australia against Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita. And it probably had one of the greatest tag team matches, I think, of the year.
Yeah, and I believe we saw them team up again against the Death Riders. They stood up in the crowd.
No, that wasn't a match. That was when they formed. That's when they.
Okay.
So
that was one of the greatest. If you guys haven't seen that promo, that was one of the coolest things ever. And I love at the end, Kenny's like, "All right, now get me down from here. I don't like heights." It was so comical.
When they were building up to the Grand Slam match, they climbed up the scaffolding, and Kenny's like, "Yeah, I'm afraid of heights. Get me down." But because the moment I think you're thinking of the match is that same segment, he goes up on the barricade and he does like a moonsault off the barricade onto the.
Yes.
So I believe you're thinking, which again, the Death Riders and the Don Callis have basically been all over AEW. Everyone's
It's so hard to tell them apart right now.
The biggest thing to know is Don Callis basically has everyone in the Death Rider and everyone else. Not really, but unfortunately, that's why these stories kind of commingle, is because you have Don Callis recruiting Brian Cage, recruiting Takeshita, recruiting Kyle Fletcher. He's getting all these people because he recruited Fletcher to screw over Ospreay. If you notice the pattern here with him,
yes,
you have Kenny Omega getting kicked out and them basically making his life a living hell. You have Ospreay getting kicked out. They make his life a living hell. Takeshita's left. They're making his life living hell. Fletcher and Okada on the verge of dissension. Everything is about Don screwing Kenny, and it's always going to cost him. And that's kind of the crux of the first two matches, is you had Don on Kenny's side, and he did some underhanded things to beat Ospreay. Then you had Ospreay with Don. He did some underhanded things to beat Kenny. Now they're going into All In for their third match without him in this corner. So now it's truly on neutral ground. And how did we get here? And that's kind of where it brings us now, is the beginning of this year, they started planting those seeds of this match. And I know I took a lot of heat online for saying it's going to happen at Wembley, because I started saying it last year. And no. And Emily can be attest to this. After you had Ospreay and Omega backstage, after Revolution, and they're talking to each other, I said that match is happening at Wembley, because why would they start planting those seeds? Why would they start planting that conversation? And basically you have Ospreay saying something along the lines to Omega of, yeah, I would have relied on you if you fucking showed up. He started planting those seeds of doubt. Like, what did you think of those segments when you first started seeing those airing between Revolution and Dynasty?
I got excited because I knew something is cooking. And to see how they were acting with each other, it was too good. He was glazing him. It was just too much. So you knew more was to come with this, but eventually I love that they decided some way, somehow they're going to come together and they're going to make this match happen.
And I like that because, you have the story of resilience because the year before, you had Omega back, but he had to deal with Okada. He was kind of dealing with that in the sidelines. You had Ospreay dealing with Kyle Fletcher, trying to win the Owen, failing to win the Owen, not really having his moment, and then the Death Riders taking him out, breaking his neck, putting him on the shelf, and he comes back at Revolution, gets beat by Moxley. He's crushed. He's like, I come back, I lose, they almost do it again. And you make the decision to join the Death Riders, which I know is very divisive, but I feel it had and has a purpose. Because I think he put everything aside. He put his fears aside. Because Moxley said, will this make you feel better? And he lays in a chair and basically tells Will, do it. Give me my receipt. And he doesn't. And he decides to listen to Moxley. And he wanted to listen to Moxley because Moxley was a 4-time champion. Moxley's beaten Omega. Moxley's beaten everyone who mattered. Moxley's had wins at the biggest moments. And he's been at the top multiple times. Why wouldn't you trust the ace of the company, the guy who's been not only on top of the mountain, but set the bar? So he sacrificed his anger because that's the first thing he was told. Let go of your anger. Let go of your emotions. If you can't be a cold-blooded killer, you're not going to do this because this business is full of snakes, carnies, and liars.
Yeah, and I feel like Omega had to grasp a different side of himself coming back from injury, as did Ospreay. So for Ospreay, like you said, he had to get a hold of what was making him so angry and what was like, I guess, dragging him down in a way.
Yeah, free
And
himself.
yeah, he had to grab that and take hold of it and really take charge of his life again, because he lost everything when his neck went. He had to get that surgery, and he put that off, I believe, for a minute because he was scared to lose what he loved the most.
And he was
He was
scared
afraid he would never
style.
wrestle again. He was afraid he'd have to change everything about his style. So going into learning with Mox and training with Mox, they trained that neck back. They worked that back. He's learned a new style. We talk about how people train with Bryan Danielson to learn how to come back from a neck injury. And this is exactly what Moxley taught him, is how to transfer your moveset so that you can learn new things and get that Tiger Driver down, because he knew.
Use it as your secret weapon.
Yeah, as much as everyone sits here and harps on the diverticulitis of Kenny Omega, there's other injuries that you can work as well, and I think that's what the Death Riders were really teaching him how to hone in.
And that's exactly right. He put an armbar into his repertoire, the Fujikatami armbar. He started embracing more of a warrior spirit. He started becoming more ruthless. We saw him use the hidden blade on his downed opponent. You saw him sneak attack the Bucks. You started seeing him step up because what was the first test? He had to take on Swerve in the Owen Hart finals. And he basically got there with the Death Riders' help. And one of the moments I loved about this match was the Death Riders surrounding the ring and encouraging Will not to fucking quit, not to give up. And Moxley kind of doing the Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid moment of doing the head nod, like, finish this fight. And, you have, or you could even say it's, Cobra Kai, him doing it. But either way, you have the sensei telling him, finish the fight, you can do this. And he beats Swerve. He finally wins the Owens. He's going to Wembley. He has this moment. He's one step closer to the world title that, think about it, his way, lost out on multiple times. He lost against Swerve at Forbidden Door. He lost the Owen at Double or Nothing 2025. Now, in 2026, he was the winner of the Owen. He was going to Wembley to fulfill his dream, which is to win a championship in Wembley. And he'll become the first man, or Englishman, to win, because Saraya is the first woman. He can get that name in the history books to be the first Englishman to win a world championship at Wembley in wrestling. But he's still with the Death Riders, and Kenny doesn't trust that. And that was another seed that happened after the pay-per-view. He got patched in. Moxley officially said, we took a vote on it. We want to patch you into the Death Riders. You live our core. You wrestle like us. This is great. And he accepted. He was happy. And Omega's like, really? Death Riders? And that line that stuck in my head forever is when Ospreay says to Omega, just because you've given up on yourself doesn't mean I've given up on myself. And
because you've given up on yourself doesn't mean I've given up on myself.
Omega was just, what? And then you had MJF being cocky and doing everything else. But now we have that story of Omega. He wants his title too, because he was sick. He was even sick of people talking about his injury. He's like, look, stop talking about my stomach. I'm here to compete. I need to be at the high level. So not only does he have commentary burying him, not only does he have the fans not believing in him, he has Ospreay, his supposed friend, saying, I don't think you believe in yourself. You can't do this. I hope you still want this dream as much as you do. And he would help Omega beat MJF, become a 2-time world champion. Even Omega, I mean, Ospreay was shocked after he won. Even Ospreay sitting there like, whoa! Like that expression on his face was insane. So,
I
what are
think
your
we
thoughts
all
on that
had
story?
that face.
So, what are your thoughts on the kind of that story of of Kenny having to overcome all that?
I think that it's been, again, really good because I'm so tired of hearing about the injuries and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I know it plays into it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I do know that we have to go into that. But it's just, like, tiresome. Every match that Kenny's in, you hear about his diverticulitis and 2 feet of intestine gone and this and that. And
They
it's
work
like,
his stomach.
yeah, and I get it. You have to do that. Just like Will, they work the neck. I get it. But oh my goodness, just shut up and let them wrestle because that's what they do best. We don't need the injury talk. We don't need all of that because we have these 2 amazing wrestlers that are just going to have all these great callbacks and all these great things happening. And I can't wait to see the different move sets that are going to be put into this because they're so fluent together. They work so well together. Everything goes so perfectly when they're in the ring together. I just love watching them make magic.
And I think, too, this storyline really ramped up at Redemption. You know, you have Ospreay basically not wanting to pull the trigger on Nick Jackson because he has head issues. Nick Jackson gets, not concussed, but he gets knocked loopy in a match. And you have Moxley saying, do it, pull the trigger, hit him with, take him out, take him out. Ospreay can't do it. Will can't do it because he knows that. And you have Moxley think back of, they'll do it to you because they did it to me. And I thought that was very fitting that they're kind of calling back that story that maybe Moxley's not warning Will that he needs to pull the trigger and be a ruthless killer. Maybe he was saying, you need to be one step ahead of them because if you don't, they will. And they kind of did because at the end of the night, Kenny would retain his title. He would win the match. He would get attacked by the Death Riders. He would have a chair put on his neck. And Will, having flashbacks to Forbidden Door when it happened to him, come out. He would save him. He would take the chair. He would basically clear the ring. He put the chair down. Moxley would give him the bag and say, this is basically your final test. Take him out. But he hesitated. He thought about it. He's like, do I do it? Look what happened with Bryan Danielson. Do I do this? And he didn't. He fucking ripped it up. He took out those Death Riders 1v1. He took out Mox, so he threw his patch into the crowd. He was done. He didn't want to win that way. He didn't want to be that way. And Kenny gets up and he sees Will holding the belt and he sees him holding the plastic bag and he's like, what the fuck, bro? But, he lets bygones be bygones. They're celebrating until next thing you know, Omega fucking drops Ospreay with a one-wing angel. And they close out the show with the Elite, all 3 of them. You have the Bucks and Kenny Omega, hard cam, just like the old days, closing out the pay-per-view. And Ospreay being confused. And I just love, he walks off after the show goes off there. He looks in the camera and he just goes, game on.
Game on.
And then they cut that amazing promo on Dynamite last week in Detroit, where you have Kenny basically explaining, listen, you were supposed to be my friend, and you kept taking these fucking shots at me. You kept saying, I'm never here. I can't do this. You didn't believe in me, that I couldn't handle this. And he starts slapping the shit out of me. He's like, does this look like I can't handle it? And then Ospreay's like, no, fuck that. And he goes, don't put your hands on me again. And it's picked up. It's picked up. Because now you have Kenny saying, look, you were my friend. You stabbed me in the back. You did all this, and I told you would. And Ospreay, like, I fucking tried to help you. So now you have this tension that's just boiled over. And I can't wait for All In because I can't wait to see where they go with this build, and I can't wait to see what happens, because not only do we have the New Japan history, we have the Forbidden Door history, we have their tag team history, like Emily was talking about when they were friends. We have this recent year of build. We don't even know if they're both going to be heels or they're both going to be faces because, let's face it, no one's booing Ospreay in Wembley.
No one's gonna boo Omega.
So
Maybe.
what level? Because you have Ospreay saying, I'll pull the trigger and I'll do it when you see it coming. I'm not going to do it behind your back. But Kenny's kind of being a little bit of a heel, after he slapped the shit out of Ospreay, he's in the corner like, no, Will, don't do this. So it's almost like we don't really know what either man's true motives are. Kenny feels like Will only wants the title. Is that all our friendships is that fucking title? And then you have Ospreay who sees he needs to beat Omega to be the guy. And this is really that passing of the torch moment. So to go back to that, if you're not going to pass the torch, I'm going to fucking take it moment. All in feels like that passing of the torch moment where if Ospreay wins and holds up the title in Wembley, I would say Kenny passed the torch.
I also want to put in that I had a good question for you.
Okay.
So we saw one of very little people show up into AEW without a dual contract. He would just show up very often into AEW, whether it was Forbidden Doors or other pay-per-views before Revolution 2024. That was Will's first official match in AEW as a signed talent.
Correct.
So, do you think if it wasn't for the 2022 feud, do you think if it wasn't for this build, that Will would have been in AEW as often or as prominently, if not for this Kenny Omega feud?
I think if this initial feud didn't happen in 2022, I don't think we see Ospreay in AEW. I think we see him in WWE. I think the allure of having this series of matches with Kenny is a big motivating factor. I also think All In against Jericho, him out there in front of 80,000 people, getting that reception, wrestling, and he said it before, but I said it when it happened. I think that was the moment he realized he was all elite. I think he wanted to challenge himself. I think he did the job in Tokyo, and I think he beat Kenny in Canada. I think it's the long game for him. I think this is what he wanted because these are the moments that define your career forever. You have when you think of rivals, you have Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You have FTR and the Briscoes recently. You also have Okada Omega, but now you can have Ospreay Omega to get your name in the history books with trilogies or multi matches. I mean, when we talk about some of the greatest of all time, you talk about their best matches. You talk about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins having their feud. You talk about those matches because not only the matches are great, the story that gets interwoven over the years. And I think all that, to kind of long ass answer your question, is a yes, because I think without this story, he doesn't debut as hot. I don't think he gets that same reception because if you really think about it, he came in, he fought Orange. Orange was the babyface. He was the heel. Everyone loved Ospreay, loved his moves. But it wasn't until he came in and was a dickhead to Kenny. That crowd was split in that match.
In Canada.
Yeah, it was split. That match really won a lot of AEW fans over. And then Revolution, him and Takeshita, and I'll say it because we're biased because we're there. I think that was a holy shit, welcome to AEW moment. And then his feud with MJF, like, the series with Kenny propelled him into the top right away. He was able to come in a main eventer, I think, because of this feud. If he had this feud with anyone else, does that happen? Probably not.
I want to point out that I'm not the typical wrestling fan when it comes to storylines. I don't always need a story to watch great wrestling. For me, I want to see wrestlers who can wrestle, just wrestle. Show me what you have. I still want to see the anything you can do, I can do better, and that's what these two bring us. That's exactly what their charisma, their tandem, everything about Omega and Ospreay in the ring together is just literally anything you can do, I can do better. They one up each other constantly. They're bringing callbacks back and forth. I think that this is entirely what I look for in a wrestling match. When I'm talking like, give me athleticism, I don't honestly do I love the story? 1,000%. Do I look forward to finishing this story with them? Definitely. But at the end of this, I'm excited for some wrestling. They are going to tell a story in the ring with or without the story behind it.
So you say great story elevates the match?
Yeah, because again, you've got these two amazing wrestlers, and without the backstory, regardless, they're going to put on a hell of a match. But now you've got this tremendous backstory to look into and to follow. So if you don't want to look into promos, if you just want to watch the wrestling, that's okay too. This is there for you. Don't
And
worry.
the great thing is they recap, the important segments. So you watch Wrestle Kingdom 17, they have the promo package from the press conference. You watch Forbidden Door 2023, they blend in everything from New Japan.
And they'll do that again. When they do the Road to All In, they'll probably sprinkle in a little bit of all of this because New Japan lets them use the footage. So you'll see a little sprinkle of all these little things. And it is just beautifully written, beautifully done. Again, this in-ring performance is what is the top of everything.
And like you said, you have Tiger Style Pro working there editing these videos. They're going to be amazing because, like you said, they have the partnership with New Japan. So we're going to see the in-match footage like they did with Okada Omega to get people caught up. So they're going to have that to kind of show you that really I wrote down all three matches and I wrote down one word for each. Because I asked myself for this episode, if I was to describe each match in the trilogy, how would I describe it? And this is kind of my answer, and I want to ask your answer after. So match one, I think, was like the respect. I think Ospreay wanted to earn Omega's respect. Match two is revenge. Match two is Ospreay wanted his win
Go
back.
fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself. This match is legacy. I think this match is about Ospreay's legacy. So, I mean, you can use the same words or if you have different ones. What would you think for each match? What would you give each match? Like, what word? Ask you in the comments as well. Let me know below. Each match, what do you think would be a word you describe it with?
So I would say Wrestle Kingdom, match number 1, that you're looking for almost like teacher mentor. I guess it is like respect, but I feel like there's a better, like another way to word it that I can't honestly think of at the moment. But I think that is teacher and mentee.
Like student master kind of situation?
Yes.
Okay.
And then match number 2 is him showing, but I'm the fucking master now. And I think that Ospreay comes in and takes his fucking head off, and I think it's great. And then this next match coming up, I think it's going to be Will solidifying that he is the best in the world. I think that Ospreay, again, fantastic, everything else above it. Like, Ospreay is just the epitome of professional wrestling. He is the person when you think professional wrestling across all brands, I want to say it's fucking Will Ospreay.
So I would agree with that. I think to add a caveat to that too, I'm going to add one prediction, and I'll say it now, and I'll probably say this all the way until All In. Ospreay's the first person to kick out of the one-week Angel at All In at Wembley. I think that's going to be the moment he's winning, is he kicks out, and Kenny's going to be like, and I'm not saying kick out at 1, because that's a Kenny thing, and that's obviously, I think, like we saw last night with Speedball at 2.99999, it's going to be that. It's going to be, holy crap, Kenny hit One Wing Angel, center of the ring, 1, 2. Like, it's going to be one of those, like, holy shit, he just kicked out moments. Because, again, I agree with you. I think you have Omega, who is the best in the world, and now Ospreay has a chance to prove I beat the best, because Ric Flair said it best, and it's the most biggest cliche in wrestling, but it's true. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and I think Ospreay is going to beat Omega to solidify, like you said, being that best in the world. Kenny Omega calls himself the god of pro wrestling. He's the best bout machine. And maybe this is his way of giving that rub to the next one, because the first person to kick out of the One Wing Angel is going to be remembered forever. Him winning at Wembley is going to be iconic. So
yeah.
What better way to put him on that next stratosphere? Not that he's already not up there, but what better way to elevate him, to use that pun again? And that's why I'm excited for this match. And that's why I like these stories that they tell in AEW, which, sorry, I guess they do tell stories, but I like that they're bridging from New Japan 2022 all the way to AEW 2026. There's not some weird disconnect where go fill in the gaps yourself. Like you said, they're going to have the video package. HBO Max is going to put that right on after. New Japan World is available where you can watch these. The fact that it's accessible, the fact that we could see it, shows you why I think it's the best, because it's not, it's a tale told over 2 companies. We can only show you one company's worth. It's, here's everything you need to know before you watch All In.
Yeah. And again, if you are enjoying this, just know that we have covered other stories and we're going to continue to cover some. I think that our next one is going to be Willow and Mercedes because they have a long history also going into this. Also, again, two fantastic women putting out banger matches together.
And
And
their careers parallel each other.
they very much parallel one another, and I think that's the fun part about this is just like Omega and Ospreay, you don't need the story to watch the wrestling, but let me tell you, the story is fantastic and you're gonna want to tune into both.
And also be on the lookout because we are going to Rev Pro and Progress when we go overseas. Jeff came up with an idea, and we are going to do an episode talking about British independent wrestling, BritRes as they call it, some of the best independent wrestling in the world. So we're going to talk a little about Rev Pro, a little about Progress. We have some match types coming up we're going to discuss. We're going to talk all about Anarchy in the Arena, all about Stadium Stampede, because we want to talk about our favorite things in AEW, but also, like Emily said at the top of the show, if you're newer here, here's why we like it, and here's kind of what we enjoy about it, some of our favorite moments. And if you've been with AEW for a while, or you've been with Cruising Kayfabe for a while, here's some more content for you to enjoy. And if you do enjoy content, like I said, a little goes a long way. A like, a subscribe, a share, that helps out tremendously, and we appreciate you guys so much.
And we're trying to grow our Instagram, so we are working on it piece by piece. Give us some time. I apologize. Yeah. But you know, I have to give this man some credit. He's got some wild ass ideas, but y'all love it. Like, I sometimes just get such a kick because I'll be scrolling TikTok and I'm like, ah, babe's made another video. And I like get to watch and tune in, and then he'll be like, oh, hey, did you see this update? I'm like, yeah, you already updated me on it. So I think it's kind of fun because I find out at the same time you guys do sometimes about wrestling news and stuff going on because he's so on top of it and he's so aware of what's happening that he's able to grab at it very quickly. And I'm going to give him his dues on that because there are so many times that he is coming in from his lunch break and he's like, hey, guess what news just broke? So
I appreciate that. No, it's been fun, and I think having you by my side has always helped. Someone who loves wrestling as much as I do, being able to talk to friends who like wrestling. I have a friend who hasn't watched wrestling in years and has been falling in love with AEW, so I might bring him on the show. He used to be a hardcore WWE only person, and not that that's a bad thing, but he started to watch AEW, and he's kind of the inspiration of this series. Is there are going to be people who discover things late in life. I kind of look at AEW and WWE like music. You may have mainstream, but then you might have some underground bands that you might not have heard of, and it's always good to kind of find out, hey, what did I miss? What album should I listen to? I feel like AEW is the same thing. What matches should I watch? Because I think we're always asked in our comments, what match would you recommend? Or, hey, tell me a little bit about this person. And that's kind of what the concept of these are, and the concept of this video was. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. And sorry, go ahead.
So there's been a lot of talks in our comments about like, oh, well, I'd love to know who trained this person, or I'd love to know more about that thing, or please drop those comments because I love doing my deep dives on those things.
Never.
There was somebody a couple weeks ago that asked about Kevin Knight, and they're like, I'd love to know who trained him. And I'm like, this is who it was. Like, I love doing that. And
Kushida, baby.
If that's what helps anybody else understand what's going on, like, please DM us, please comment to us. We do like this. And I think another thing going into all of this is that I wish I had videos like this, people talking to me without mansplaining. I think the fact that we just sit here and we chill and we just talk and we go over matches and over rivalries and stories, it makes it more lackadaisical than somebody mansplaining it to you. And I think that's the joy I get because in 2014, when I first started watching wrestling, there wasn't a podcast that I knew of to go listen to learn about WWE wrestlers. And I think that's why I loved listening to CVV for so long. And I loved Unrestricted and I loved all these podcasts because they brought me that little piece of joy. And I hope that that's what we do for you guys. I hope that this covering this little piece helps you guys understand what I needed and what I found in CVV and what I found in Unrestricted, because it's been enjoyable for me to come through and communicate our passion and our love for this industry. And I used to be so ashamed to be like, oh, I'm a wrestling fan. And now I'm proudly like, I'm a content creator for like wrestling and I really like it. And I just like, I'm a server at a diner and I have people asking, oh, what are you doing in London? And I'm like, oh, we're actually going to a bunch of wrestling shows and we're doing this and we're doing that. And my guests will be like, oh, your husband must like wrestling. And I'm like, it's me. It's all of us. So I just want to say, like, thank you for letting us do this and be on the lookout for our drive up to London. We're going to have some fun things going on.
Yeah, don't stay ahead for content because not only are we going to have some vlogs of our journey up to London, we're going to have our road trip up to get to the airport to go to London. We're going to go to the Harry Potter exhibit. We have a lot of things planned, a lot of things to film, live predictions. Plus, we still have our Saturday shenanigans, our predictions for the pay-per-view.
Get your notifications on. We don't know when we're going to go live.
And here's the other best part. Once I hit 1,000, who knows? Maybe I'll have to cut my hair in London, and that'll be a whole little thing, too.
Oh my gosh. Imagine we have to find a store to go shave his head. You could get bicked.
I mean, we're close. We're at 790 as of today, so make sure you like, subscribe, help me lose my hair. 210 to Yuma, baby. On that note, have a great night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, always
keep the kayfabe.